Okay, so in the last class, we had looked at the different types of plant tissue, that is meristematic and the permanent tissue. And we looked at what exactly is xylem and phloem. I'm yet to create those slides where I had said I will make out simpler notes and not so much of content on xylem and phloem. So that I'm yet to do it, but I'll do it maybe this week sometime soon. So that is one thing. So continuing with those different types of tissue which are present in the plant, actually there are few other types of tissue which ultimately makes a part of either of earlier learned tissues, but because they have something special characteristics, see them in different. So first of the protective tissue. Now, protective tissue, I don't think I should explain what protective tissue would do as in a plant tissue. So they do a function of protection. One of that is epidermis. Now, epidermis is one of the layer which is present around leaf, stem, as well as root. So you take any structure on from the plant, it will have epidermal layer. So stem has its outermost epidermis, leaf has its own outer epidermis, and similarly root also has outer epidermis. Now, that is the outer casing of all the structure in the plant. The most important characteristic of epidermis is the presence of stomata. We will see this when we look at the chapter transpiration. So the stomata is nothing but like a kind of open spaces which are enclosed by two cells, and they are called as stomatal openings or stomata as such. And this stomata help in loss of water as well as exchange of gases. So whatever carbon dioxide is sometimes taken from the atmosphere, it is entering the leaf through the stomatal structure, as well as when excess of water is there, it is going out of the plant through the stomata structure. So like I said, stomata are nothing but like, let's say if you take two kidney bean shaped cells and if you put them together face to face, there will be a very small opening at the center, right? That is nothing but the stomatal opening. So similar structures are present in the epidermal region of these plant tissues on the outermost layer, and they are stomata. Just a small piece of information. Usually on the lower surface of the leaf, there is quite a lot of number of stomata. Like if this is the leaf, my hand is a leaf, there will be upper surface which is facing the sunlight, and then there will be lower surface which will be away from the sunlight. So this lower surface of the leaf usually has higher number of stomata, and the reason is so that the water doesn't evaporate much, and it just goes out through the stomata from the lower surface itself. So that is the epidermis and the speciality of it, that is stomata. Second protective tissue that we are going to look is the cork. Cork is nothing but the again, it's actually a substitute of epidermal cells in the mature stems and the roots. So you know bark and cork, they are like kind of similar tissue, you can say, right? So when the epidermal cells, they grow very old in the outermost layer of the stem and the roots, it starts forming this dead layer of cell, and that is what is called as cork. And the again, the speciality of this cork cell is their cell walls, they are coagulated by suberin. Suberin is one type of biomolecule, like you have resins, a little or lignin you had seen earlier in sclerenchyma. So something similar is there in terms of molecular content, and that is giving more hard texture to this let's say dead epidermal cell or the cork cells, and which makes them impervious to gas and water molecule. And because of this like this presence of the suberin and the cork cells on the stem and the root, it gives kind of permeability to different molecules. So that is epidermis and cork. Okay, does anyone have any question here? I assume this was relatively simpler compared to all the other tissues. And like I said, these are still the part of the those different types of tissue. Epidermis is still the part of, let's say, depending on how old it is usually a part of your meristematic tissue because it is growing outside. I'll just quickly show you this diagram. Yeah. See, if you see here, this is the section of the leaf. This outermost part, which is shown in kind of pista color or let's say light green color, that is the epidermis, and then there is upper epidermis and lower epidermis. Similarly, in this stem section also, this outermost layer that you see, that is epidermis. Even in this root section, this kind of light brown thing that you see, that is epidermis. So in every part of the plant, you will see this epidermis, and when the stem and the root will grow older, these epidermal cells will turn into the cork cells. So that is the structure of these two protective tissues.
Basically, they're like skin.
Yeah, it's basically the skin of the plant. But our skin has quite many layers as such, if you look at it. And plant skin that way, if it also, it doesn't have those many layers.
Sir, I have a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
You said that bark and cork is like kind of similar, right?
Yeah.
So like, what's the difference?
So can we take this question later in the sense when we go through that chapter, because there we will talk much more detail about all of these things. We have complete plant physiology, if you don't mind. Otherwise, if you
No, it's fine.
because means like actually there is no such difference. It just like epidermal cells grow old, it form cork cells. When it grows with certain other cellular material, it forms the bark, and bark you can easily peel off. That's the actual difference, nothing much. Okay, so then again another specialized type of tissue which are present in the plants, they are either called as secondary tissues or called as glandular tissues. Now the name itself says they are, if they are glandular, that means they are going to secrete some substances. They are also called as secretory tissues. And the different like biomolecules or different substances that are being secreted includes gums, resins, volatile oils, nectar, latex, and so on. So these are the various substances which are secreted by the plants, and there are specialized structures or tissues which secrete these. And two of them we are going to see, that is latissiferous tissues. These are again nothing but because they secrete the latex, which is milky yellowish colored juice. And I guess I had mentioned this, when you sometimes break a stem or break a leaf, that white color milky fluid that comes out, that is nothing but the latex, and they contains numerous nuclei which lie embedded in the thin lining of the protoplasm. Protoplasm is nothing but the cytoplasm. In the earlier version, we call it protoplasm. So this is the your latissiferous tissues. Again, you need not remember every part of this paragraph, but what you should know is latissiferous tissues. These are specialized tissue which secrete the latex, and latex is your milky juice that is secreted by the plant. Then other glandular tissues, again these are specialized glands, like we also have thyroid gland and pancreas or the adrenal gland and so on. So similarly, plant also has certain glands, though they need not always secrete the hormones. They do secrete some either the secretory or excretory product. Now there is a difference between these two words. Secretion can be useful, like can be of useful product, right? Excretion is usually of the byproducts that is not required. Yeah, so there is a difference. So let's say when we say thyroid gland secretes thyroid hormone, but the skin excretes the sweat, or skin also secrete the sweat, but that sweat is not actually useful. That is the byproduct that is not required by the body. Even the urethra will excrete the urine. We don't say urethra secrete the urine. So I hope the difference between these two words are clear. So these glandular tissues, they can be either secretory or they can be excretory, and based on what they are throwing out of their own structure. Again, these can be group of cells and so on with central cavity, and there are various types of these glands which we are not going to in detail, but majorly what they secrete is this oil, gum, resins and tannins. Now you must have seen this, like some trees on their bark you see that sticky substance which we call gum or resins, depends on what tree it is, and tannins is usually present in the outermost layer, which is again secreted. Sometimes like rubber is a kind of like the rubber plant, if you make a cut on the stem of the tree, it will ooze out certain secretion, right? So these are the your glandular secretion, and if it is external, that means water secreting hairs, that is like special structures which are external to the already existing structure. Let's say on the stem you must have seen aerial roots, right? Like for example that money plant that we have, or banyan tree has the aerial roots. So not necessarily these trees or these plants that I mentioned will secrete the water, but similar structure in some of the plant they do excrete water through this, or some of the plants they do excrete gum through this like hair like structure from the glandular tissues. So that is another type of specialized structure or specialized tissue in the plant. Okay, again, any question here in terms of glandular or secretory tissues? Okay, so if there are no questions, then we have finished the whole of the plant tissue section. Now we are going to shift to animal tissue. And like I had said, there is actually quite a lot of drastic difference in terms of different tissues that we have in animals compared to those which are present in plants. Plant tissue, they are relatively much simpler, and animal tissue, they are very complex in terms of function, in terms of their structural arrangement and so on. So in both of these aspects, structure as well as function, animal tissues, they are a little complex type of tissue. We will see all of them one by one. What you see on this screen is actually just different types of tissue which are present in your body. They are like just present all over the body in different forms. So again, the basics of these you must have studied since class 7 itself. Obviously, why the muscles, why the animal tissues they are required? Because they move around for different things, so they need to do certain actions and so on, and that is why the tissues they have to be present to perform a certain function. And most of the tissues they contain, they are living. That is most obvious thing, right? Like cells are living, so obviously the tissue will be living, and ultimately the organ system and then the whole organism itself. The structural organization of organ and organ system is more specialized and localized in animals than in plant, and this is what I said at the start. There are 4 major type of the animal tissues based on the function that they perform, right? These are epithelial tissue, connective tissue, muscular tissue, and nervous tissue. Again, I hope I don't have to go into details, but yeah, if you want me to, then you tell me. But the basics, I have assumed that you know it already. What tissue is, what are the basics of these individual tissue, which we are anyway going to see in much detail. So, starting with the first type of tissue, that is epithelial tissue. Uh, Usually, epithelial tissue, these are present on the covering of the external surfaces. That means, for example, if you have a liver, you will have epithelial tissue on its external surface, or the internal cavities. Let's say you have intestine, the innermost lining, or what we call as lumen of intestine, that is the inner cavity, that it will have epithelial tissue. And some of the organs, like for example heart or brain and so on, they also have this epithelial tissue. So that is where the location is. Now structurally, these epithelial tissues, they are tightly packed. Now again, go back to the logic, why they have to be tightly packed. Imagine intestine has on the innermost cavity loosely packed cell. What would happen? The food that you are eating may not get or maybe it will directly go out from the intestinal wall itself. It may not be completely digested till it reaches to the end of the stomach or end of the intestine, and then it will it may not absorb the nutrients, but it will directly absorb the food particles if they are loosely packed. So that is one of the reason why these epithelial tissues, they are usually tightly packed. Either they are external cavities, external surfaces, or the internal cavities of the organ, and they form a continuous sheet of these tightly packed cells. Now, the examples that are given here: the skin, the lining of the mouth as in the inner lining of the mouth, that is what we call as oral mucosa, right? The oral cavity in your inside your mouth, that is epithelial tissue. The lining of the blood vessel, again the innermost lining of the blood vessel. It is actually specialized type of tissue. We call this epithelium, and the lining of the blood vessel, we call it endothelium. Endo means inside, epi means outside. So the lining of blood vessels specifically is called as endothelium, which is ultimately a part of epithelial tissue. It's nothing different, but just because it is present in a separate structure and only present in the blood vessels, we call it endothelium. Then the lung alveoli, I again assume you would know what alveoli structure is. So in their innermost cavities, there will be epithelial tissue. Then kidney tubules, like nephrons, they have the epithelial tissue. Now these are the ones which will filter out the urine from the blood. So that's why they have to be again tightly packed cells. So these are the different examples where these epithelial tissues are present. Now looking specifically at the function, again the overall function of the epithelial tissue covers most of the organ and cavities within the body. So obviously one of the function would be to protect these organs or tissues. It also forms a barrier to keep different body systems separate. Imagine if there is no outermost layer, everything would have like gotten connected to each other, and the heart and liver would mix, or heart and stomach, or any random organs which are present in close proximity, they will form a connection, because it's ultimately giving rise to the tissue which are going to connect themselves with each other otherwise. But this epithelial tissue forms a barrier like thing to keep different organs separate. Most importantly, the permeability of the cells of various epithelia plays a very, very important role in regulating the exchange of material. And I have already given you one example of intestinal cells, right? Like if the intestinal epithelia, they are loosely packed, then the permeability would be different than when they are tightly packed. So whenever, let's say, you food particle and it is completely digested, broken down to the smallest possible molecule, and that molecule will get absorbed by the intestinal epithelium. At the same time, let's say if you are taking a medicine, let's say you take a paracetamol tablet, right? The moment you take paracetamol, it will go and dissolve in the stomach. Then it will go slowly down through the stomach. Some of the paracetamol will be absorbed in the stomach. Some of the paracetamol will be absorbed in the intestine. Now, for this paracetamol molecule to get absorbed from the broken tablet inside the GI tract, it needs that specific permeability to this paracetamol molecule, and that specialized function is actually done by this epithelial lining of the tissue. And this is one example of one organ, right? There are several such examples of different organs present in your body. So that is the permeability feature of these epithelial cells, regulating the exchange of materials. Then, yes, I guess someone has a question.
Yeah, sir, can you go to the previous slide once? Yeah, I just want to write it down.
Okay. These four types you mean:
Yeah, sir.
epithelial, connective, muscular, and nervous. Okay, so I hope you are done, and I'm moving forward. So that is the permeability function. Another very specialized function of these epithelial tissues or epithelium. Epithelium refers to singularity. Yeah, that is um at the end, epithelium, so that is referring to the singularity of this tissue. So this epithelium has this flagella in some of the organs, or it has cilia, or it also has microvilli. Now, flagella and cilia, these are hair-like projections at the epithelial wall. So, let's say, for example, you have a nasal mucosa, right? Or inside your nose, in the innermost cavity, you have the epithelial tissue which is lined with the cilia. The hair-like projections which are inside your nose, they are nothing but the cilia, and that is called as ciliated epithelium. Ciliated means epithelial tissue which has cilia, or it is also called as flagellated epithelium. So that is epithelial tissue with the flagella structure. Flagella is nothing but again a hair-like projection which is little longer than the cilia. And microvilli, these are very specifically present in your intestinal walls. Now these are nothing but like if you have a cloth and if you make a plates of it, like up and down plates of it, right? So those structure, that is something like microvilli. So when you have epithelial tissue as one line, and when it folds at certain points, that is nothing but the microvilli structure. And why it is present? Just to increase the surface area of the epithelium within the intestine, these microvilli structures are present in the intestinal epithelium. So these are the functions of epithelial tissue in general. Does anyone have any question here before we move on to the types of these epithelial tissue?
No.
I hope everyone is following, because I feel I again talk just to myself, but then I hope you all are listening and you are making it clear in your head. Okay, so then moving forward, so this is the basics of how epithelial tissue is in terms of structure. and in terms of function. Then moving forward with respect to the types of epithelial tissue. Now there are various other types. Let me show you the diagram first so that you will understand. So there is something called as squamous epithelium. Forget the simple word for now. There is something called as cuboidal. This is based on the shapes, and there is something called as columnar, right? So then there is simple squamous, simple cuboidal, and simple columnar. And there is something called as stratified squamous, stratified cuboidal, and pseudo stratified columnar. Stratified means, the word stratified means different layers. Simple means usually a single layer. Stratified means different layer. Pseudo stratified means it is not true layers, like just the cells are mixed in certain manner, but that is not forming actual layer. And transitional is, it's a mixture of different types of tissue. So if you see, there is columnar, and then there is this cuboidal and so on. So that is just transition, though we are not going to look at this transitional type, but yeah, we are going to look at these other types of epithelial tissue. So I hope structure wise you have understood how they are. Squamous is kind of irregular shaped cells. Cuboidal epithelium is of cuboidal shape, like one cell is cuboidal shape, and then all these cuboidal cells, when they are arranged, it forms a cuboidal layer. And columnar, these are column shape, and similarly is the stratified versions of these ones. So uh, talking about the first type of the epithelial tissue, that is simple squamous epithelium. Now we know how they are in terms of their shape. So these are the cells which are lining the blood vessels or lung alveoli. This is where they are present, and these are specifically responsible for transportation of substances through a selectively permeable membrane. Now even if you look at the blood vessels, or even if you think of the lung alveoli is very specific for the exchange of carbon dioxide with oxygen through this hemoglobin function. So that way it's very specific. Blood vessel also for the water permeation as well as nutrient being permitted from across the blood vessels. It is very specific to that function. So that is where the simple squamous epithelium is present. There is a simple flat, extremely thin kind of epithelium, and that is what is named as the simple squamous epithelium. Like if you again go back to that diagram, you can see compared to all these other types, squamous epithelium is very, very thin in terms of its width, or what we can say, yeah, the thickness. So that is simple squamous epithelium. It is also found in the lining of the mouth, esophagus, lung, and the alveoli. Lung and alveoli, it's the same thing, just within lung, they are present in the alveoli structure. Now you might find sometimes the same example of, let's say, mouth or esophagus having some other type of tissue, some other type of tissue as in some other type of epithelial tissue. That means there is chance that a mouth can have two different types of epithelial tissue at the same time, and that is quite possible. So do not get confused there. As of now, these are the various examples of simple squamous epithelium. Then similar brother or sister of this simple squamous epithelium, or let's say older sibling, is stratified squamous epithelium. Again, this is nothing but the layers of this squamous epithelium. So in this, the skin which protects the body is made up of the squamous epithelium, which is stratified in nature, and that is why the outermost layer usually keeps shedding lot of these and you know, the skin is relatively very thin. Like if you have ever got tanned, and if you peel out that tanned skin, that is a very thin layer. So this skin is made up of your stratified squamous epithelium. And these skin epithelial cells, they are arranged in many layers uh, to prevent the wear and tear. I hope you understand this word, wear and tear. So, you know, skin has that mucosa, serosa, and epidermal, and so many different layers. That is all your stratified squamous epithelium. And since they are arranged in a pattern of layer, they are called as stratified squamous epithelium. So that is the example of stratified squamous epithelium. I hope again these two types are clear. We will look at these two types and then I guess we will stop. I mean, we will just finish this epithelial tissue and then we will stop. Then the third type is the cuboidal epithelium. So this cuboidal epithelium has the cuboidal cells, forms the lining of the kidney tubules. Kidney tubules means your nephron structure has this cuboidal epithelium cells, and it is also present in the ducts of salivary gland. Now salivary glands are again present in your oral cavity, which secretes your saliva. Now imagine a cuboidal cells forming like kind of round structure, like a ring-like structure, and the center is kind of an open cavity through which the saliva will be secreted. So that is something like a glandular type of tissue which we had seen earlier. So saliva is a kind of secretion which is secreted by the oral cavity, and specifically the cuboidal epithelium of the oral cavity. So that is also secretory in nature. So that is the cuboidal epithelium. In some cases, a portion of the epithelial tissue folds inward to form a multicellular gland. Now the same tissue, like I explained, it just folds in a different manner. You need not really remember that it folds inward always. But like, let's say, I'll go back to this diagram. Let's say this is the cuboidal tissue. Let's say if you lift this layer up, it will form a hunch here, right? And then it will form a cavity at that hunch in this layer. So let's say this is the straight layer. You pick this up, the whole layer along its this dimension. When you lift it up, it will form a kind of C shape here. So that C shape, when the ends of the C will join together, this will form a round structure on the top, and that is nothing but the glandular epithelium from the cuboidal cells. Yeah, I hope this part is clear. So glandular epithelium is actually a part of cuboidal epithelium itself, just specialized to do some secretory function, and that is the function of this cuboidal epithelium. So wherever you actually have the secretory, let's say cells, they have this cuboidal type of epithelium. Then the fourth type is the columnar epithelium. Again, the cells will be of column shaped here, elongated. The absorption and secretion occurs in the inner lining of the intestine. Now, the inner lining of the intestine has these columnar epithelium cells, which are tall in their thickness, and they are present and obviously called as columnar epithelium. In the respiratory tract as well, this outer surface of the epithelial cells, they have hair-like projection called cilia. This I already explained, that some of the epithelial tissue, they have specialized function to have this on the innermost surface of the epithelium, to have hair-like projection, which is called as cilia. And because of the cilia, like these cilia can move, so the let's say a food or the air that is going through this pipe-like structure is also aided by cilia-like structure, and their movement pushes the mucus forward to clear it. So that is the ciliary movement inside the respiratory tract, which allows the cough to either move out or go in, depending on where it is cilia is moving. And this type of epithelium is called as ciliated columnar epithelium. Ultimately, it is columnar epithelium just with the cilia structure. So these are the 4 different types, that is simple squamous, stratified squamous, simple layer, single layer. These are multiple layers, that is stratified. Cuboidal epithelium of cuboidal shape, which has another type, that is glandular. Then the columnar epithelium, column shaped cells, and they can also have ciliated cells. So that is the general. Now, apart from all these different types, you can also classify epithelial tissue based on their function. So for example, sensory epithelium is nothing but your stratified squamous epithelium, right? Which perceives the stimuli. What can be the stimuli? A touch, for example, right? Or a nose, which has the innermost cavity, which has these receptors, which will take the smell to the brain. So that is again a perception of the or perceiving the stimulus that is coming to us. So that is sensory epithelium. Glandular epithelium, which will ultimately secrete something. So secretion of the chemical. For example, your salivary epithelium or the oral epithelium. Then pigmented epithelium. Again, in the skin as well as in the retinal structure, it will impart color to the eyes, right? Not only to the retina, but to the eyes in general. So that is pigmented epithelium. Again, skin also has pigmentation, and that's what which is called as melanin, and that's what decides the skin color. So that is pigmented epithelium. And absorptive epithelium, that will do a function of absorption, for example in intestine. So based on function also you can classify the different epithelial tissue, but major classification is the based on the structure itself. We don't really classify epithelial tissue based on the function. Okay, so I guess that's it. Just these are another diagrams that I found which are relatively simpler. So this is squamous epithelium, this is cuboidal epithelium, ciliated epithelium, again ciliated columnar epithelium, and this is the glandular epithelium. Now imagine these cuboidal cells, they forming a circle shape. So that is forming, and this is the innermost cavity, which is kind of secretive in nature. So that is the glandular epithelium. So these are the various types of epithelial tissue. Does